That way I'll see if I can get that going.
Okay, you're a co-host now, Alderman.
Okay, thank you. Let me get all this sorted out on my end. I'll keep admitting folks. So
Perfect, thank you. Good evening, everyone. We're gonna give it a few minutes for people to join, and then we'll start just a couple of minutes after 7 p.m.
alrighty, and I think while this is going on, I'll probably send the link out on social media because it does not allow me to do a Facebook Live off this right now. But we've got the link, so we could do that. Okay, sounds good. All right, 7 o'clock, so I'll just start. We're recording, and we know we're gonna have folks coming in throughout. Hey everyone, Alderman Andre Vasquez of the 40th Ward. Thank you all so much for attending. We are having our community zoning meeting in regards to a proposal for a Trader Joe's location on Clark and Summerdale. And so we've got the developers here, and we're gonna have Morgan, our Director of Development, leading the whole thing. This will be a presentation of all the information for our neighbors to know exactly what they'll be weighing in on, an opportunity for you all to ask questions. And as it goes on after this meeting, we'll have a form so people can submit their support, opposition, feedback, all of the above. But in order for us to get into the details, I will hand it off to Morgan to kind of lead us through this as I keep letting folks come in. All right, Morgan, if you want to take it away.
Hi, everyone. I'm Morgan. I'm the Director of Development and Engagement in the office. You may have met me through a variety of other things I do at the office, or you may have been at one of my previous zoning meetings. We are really excited to be here tonight for the zoning meeting for 5339 North Ashland. We're going to start with introductions from the development team. They're going to give a presentation, and then we will have a question and answer session. We ask that we stay on questions and answers. If you have a public comment, please ask it in the form of a question, or you will be cut off just due to time, so we can make sure everybody gets their questions answered. And then towards the end of the meeting, we will open our public comment period. That will be open for 2 weeks. And then after 2 weeks, we'll take a week to sort through everybody's comments, and we'll make an official decision and send out an official letter to everybody who came on the Zoom call tonight, as well as in our newsletter and on our website. And the public comment form, I'll put it in the chat towards the end of the meeting, but I'll also email it to all of you after this meeting, as well as it will be in our newsletter for 2 weeks. So without further ado, I am going to pass it on to the development team.
Good evening, everyone. My name is John George, and I'm an attorney, and I represent the developers on this project. With me tonight is my partner, Kate Duncan. We're representing Mr. Alan Schwartz and Mr. Stephen Schwartz, who are the owners of the subject property. Also present tonight is the project architect, David Bender. Initially, I would just like to thank Alderman Vasquez for scheduling this meeting and giving us the opportunity to make a presentation on our project. And I would also like to thank all of you who have tuned in for this presentation for taking the time to listen to this project. It's an exciting project that we're very enthused about, and we're glad we have the opportunity to make this presentation. What I would like to be able to do is go through my presentation. I'll ask my colleague Kate to put up on the screen the site plan if she can. Oh, thanks, Kate. And as I go through, my description, you'll understand it a little bit better. The property that we are discussing tonight is the property at 5332 to 42 North on Clark, and also the parking lot to the west of the bank, which is at the northeast corner of Summerdale and Ashland. This site is presently, the one on Summerdale and Ashland, is presently being used as a parking lot for the bank. The proposal for the subject site is as follows. The existing bank would be demolished in its entirety. And in its place would be a new building that would contain a Trader Joe's grocery store, and next to it would be a small bank building. The grocery store would occupy 16,000 square feet. Adjacent to it would be the small bank building. The zoning for the property presently is B1-2, and that zoning category permits both the grocery store and the bank, and therefore there is no need to do or request any change in zoning. And the parking lot behind the existing bank would be eliminated. The lot on the northeast corner of Summerdale and Ashland, which, as I said, is presently being used as a parking lot, would be again revised, and it would now have 9 parking spaces, and it would also have an ATM drive-through lane on the north side of the lot. The cars in the lot would exit, they would enter on from Summerdale, and they would exit onto Ashland with a right turn only improvement on Ashland. The ATM only is what we were talking about. There would be no other banking operations carried on in this parking lot. It would be just a drive-through ATM. The parking lot would be landscaped with native grass, a landscaping. The change in the way the cars exit this lot is the result of a meeting we had with the immediate neighbors who surround this property. And that was done also with the help of Alderman Vasquez, who worked with the Department of Transportation on this issue. The drive-through bank now requires, though, that we obtain a special use from the Zoning Board of Appeals of the City of Chicago. Also, there used to be a building just to the north of this parking lot, which has been being removed, and that lot has to be rezoned then from RS3 to B1-2 to conform with the other underlying zoning. And so we wouldn't have to rezone the property on Clark Street, but on the property along Ashland, we would have to rezone that one lot. And we would also then have to get a special use for the drive-through because that's required by the City of Chicago. With respect to Trader Joe's, most of you have already shopped probably at a Trader Joe's, so you're familiar with the look, the types of products they sell and how they operate. But I wanted to touch on some of the points that I think you might be concerned about. The hours of operation would be 8 a.m. to 9 p.m., 7 days a week. There would be parking for the store, which would be on the roof of the building, and there would be 50 to 52 parking spaces on the roof. The cars would enter and exit off of Summerdale. The question came up when we had a meeting with the adjacent neighbors about whether or not liquor or wine would be sold, and the answer is there would be liquor, wine, and beer sold, just as there is in most grocery stores. The question came up about deliveries, and the deliveries would be taking place off of Summerdale. Typically, they will be early in the morning from 4 a.m. to 7 a.m. and in the evenings between 10 p.m. to 11:45 p.m. But here again, the store and the lessor reserve the right to change those hours depending upon weather conditions and holidays that might come up and may require a change in type of some of the deliveries. With respect to hiring and staffing of the stores, when these Trader Joe's open up, they open up with approximately 60 employees who are both full and part-time. And that number of employees then get adjusted depending upon how the volume of the store goes. It's the position of Trader Joe's when opening up new stores that they hire from the community. With respect to community participation, which was a question that was asked by the alderman too, they have a hunger relief organization that they support nationwide. They also contribute to local community groups, and each store has its own designated donor coordinator. Again, another question that came up that we should address is the question about murals. There is a mural on a wall now in this area. And the question was, would a mural be able to be put onto the new building? And Trader Joe's has indicated that they are open to having murals put on the side of the building. providing that the landlord is required to maintain those murals to make sure that they are maintained properly for the community. The Trader Joe's also tries to incorporate in the interior of the building a lot of other neighborhood aspects of the community, and they intend to do that with this particular project. As I said, we met previously. I previously met with the Anderson Chamber of Commerce with David Oakes. I had a meeting initially when we filed this. I got a call from David and he asked if I would come and make an initial presentation, which I did. And I used this site plan when explaining it to them. We also, about 3 weeks ago, had another meeting with the adjacent neighbors who are really, their homes are on Ashland Street and they back up, their rear yards are in the right next to, right across the alley from this proposed building. And so we met with them and answered all of the questions as best we could at that meeting. What I would like to do now is to have the architect, we have as part of this slide presentation, some renderings of the building, and I would like the architect just to explain the location of the buildings, if he can also indicate the fabric of the building and what would be put on it, and also just go over again through this diagram, the entrances and exits for the cars, as well as the loading and unloading. And David, if you could take on that responsibility and do that for me now, I'd appreciate it.
Sure.
And again, as soon as David's finished, we'll then be happy to answer all of the questions to the best of our ability. And again, we can't thank you enough for giving us the opportunity to present our matter to you tonight. So David, please go forward.
Sure. Yeah, the existing entry for the bank, as we know, was off of Clark Street, and we're going to maintain that entry location of the corner here of Clark and Summerdale. The Trader Joe's primary pedestrian entrance will be off of Clark Street as well. The parking ramp access is off of Summerdale. This is the entry and the exit. This ramp will, meet code slope requirements, and we feel it's better to be off of Summerdale than Clark Street to avoid some congestion there. The surface parking for the bank that they will primarily be utilizing is Jack had mentioned, is only off of Summerdale and then exiting onto Ashland. Is there a page forward here? We can go to the renderings.
Kate, can you move to the, thank you, Kate. Okay.
Let's see, this is the Clark Street view here with our entry for US Bank maintained at the hard corner. Trader Joe's further to the north. You can see in this rendering, there's a couple stair towers. Those will be coming down from the parking surface above. You'll have direct access inside of the store without from the surface parking on the roof down to the store via two stairways and then a couple elevators as well. The building itself is primarily masonry. We're sticking with the context of the neighborhood and going by the pedestrian street guidelines for the city of Chicago. Clark Street is designated a pedestrian street, so we need over 60% glazing just to promote a kind of more pedestrian atmosphere, and we've accomplished that. We actually exceeded that by about 20%. We're about 80% glazing right now. The rear elevation, go to that view from Ashland. We've, unlike a lot of buildings that tend to carry either a precast concrete or maybe a CMU around the back of the building in the alley, we're carrying our quality materials, our brick all the way down to the property line, knowing that this building is going to be visible from Ashland and knowing that we're taking away the opportunity to develop a building there right now. So with this exposure, we expose the architecture on at least three sides. The north side of the building is a lot line right up to the building to the north. You can see by also in this view, we have a little park we've created in front of the parking field. We are screening the parking field as required by the ordinance with landscaping and fencing and providing what I think is adequate landscaping throughout the whole site, and we'll certainly meet the ordinance in terms of that. We're also providing a privacy fence on the north side of the lot to screen the residential, and we're going to build this fence solid so it does not allow light to pass through. As we know, car headlights will be a concern there with the drive-through.
That's really the extent of the different proposed views that we have of this project. And all of us now stand ready to answer any of the questions. Other questions I know came up at the meeting with the community who are close by. We definitely will be able to address them. I don't know if you want me to start addressing them. There were some questions about rodent control before, when we take the building down, would we be engaging in any type of rodent control program? And of course, the answer is yes, because that's one thing we have to do is make sure that we protect the community from any type of problem that occurs. And that's something we have committed to doing. I think what we'll do now is just open up the program now to questions, and we'll do our best to answer them. And if we don't have an answer, we'll get an answer, but we'll do our best tonight.
All right, great. I'm going through the chat, oldest to newest. If there's duplicates or some that are similar, I'll combine them, and then we'll do live questions. So the first question is there any traffic mitigation plan, such as closing Summerdale at Clark to force all TJ traffic to use Ashland rather than Clark? That is a good question for our office. I would say we don't have plans for that right now. And then another question, are there any plans for relocation of the mural on the wall of the Clark Medical Office? Alderman, that might be a good question for you. I know we talked about this.
Yes, I don't believe there's been a conversation on relocation of any of it, because currently we're still kind of in this phase of seeing where everything is at.
Given the traffic congestion that already exists at Summerdale and Clark, what is the plan for traffic flow?
Well, as we've indicated, we've shown on the site plan here, you can see where the entrance is and the exits are for the cars to gain access to the parking on the roof. And it also shows the area where we have the loading and unloading. The area we have for loading and unloading is sufficient to store the vehicles off the street so that there is no interruption on the flow of traffic on Summerdale. And with the ramp that's been being constructed to get to the roof, that's being constructed in such a way that the ramp meets the requirements. I think maybe, David, you have a little bit better knowledge of me of how the ratio of that ramp works, but maybe you can talk about that more than I can.
Yeah, it's an 8% slope for the first 10 feet and then a 16% slope from there. So your car isn't bottoming out. There's not speed control issues there. It does a similar concept at the top of the ramp where it goes to 8% for the last 10 feet. So again, your car isn't bottoming out.
Okay, great. And then
Nice thing.
speaking of Summerdale, will there be a traffic light at Ashland and Summerdale? Are there any plans to make Summerdale one way? So both of those things are things that would have to go through the alderman's office, and we do not have plans for that at this time. This next question, I know you've answered, but I just want to make sure we're all clear on the same page. Would you be able to enter Summerdale and then the TJs from Ashland or Clark?
Could you repeat the question, please, Morgan?
Would you be able to enter Summerdale and then the Trader Joe's from Ashland or Clark?
You can, no, you can, the only way that you'll be able to enter from a car, the only way you'll be able to enter with a car into this Trader Joe's parking lot is off of Summerdale. You can't enter from Clark Street, or you can't enter from Ashland Avenue.
Timothy asks, will it be necessary to modify the zoning to allow packaged goods sales? I don't believe so, right?
As I said earlier, the only zoning relief we would be required to get here is when you do any type of a drive-through for a bank facility, you're required to get a special use. So we have to file a special use with the Zoning Board of Appeals. And also, since the home, which was on the north side of the property, which has now been removed, that was an RS3 zoning, and that has to be transferred to a different category of B1-2. So we do have to have a zoning change for that. So those are the two types of zoning entitlements that we will be required to obtain, but nothing for the Trader Joe's building itself.
We have another person asking how many spots, do you know how many spots are at the Trader Joe's that's near Addison and Lincoln? Just for comparison.
I don't know the answer to that. I don't know the number of spaces on Lincoln Avenue. I can find out for you, and I'll be glad to, any question that I can answer, I'll be glad to get the answer and then send it to you so that you can send it out to all those who are attending, but I don't know the answer to that.
Perfect, thank you. Our next question, this person is wondering if there is some way that Trader Joe's could incorporate something for small businesses, like a pop-up space for local businesses.
Or again, that's a Trader Joe's would be something I would have to, we would have to, have Trader Joe's, that proposal would have to be given to them and they would have to respond to it. I mean, what they try to uniformly, as I said earlier, work very closely with the community. Whether or not that's something that they can accommodate, I don't know if that's something they accommodate at other Trader Joe's stores or not. But I'm sure that that's whatever type of proposal that you're talking about or that person is talking about, that could be submitted to Trader Joe's for their consideration.
Great, thank you. And then the next person is asking about delivery trucks. Will deliveries be limited to a time or certain time during the day, or will there be late night and overnight loading?
I talked about that earlier. They try to have their loading in the morning from 4 a.m. to 7 a.m. so as not to disturb the streets in the area, and then from 10 o'clock to 11:45 at night, again, so that they can cause the least amount of impact in the neighborhood with the loading and unloading. There may be instances because of weather conditions or because of the huge amount of demand during the holidays where maybe product would have to be delivered at other times. But I mean, the goal is to try to stay during the hours that they have talked about, and their hours of operations, and I think also, and are on their website, so that they are clear that this is a universal way that they handle their loading and unloading.
Okay, and what features are going to be implemented to support people not in cars? Will there be bike parking?
I don't, I would imagine that I haven't talked to the Divvy Bike Department of the city of Chicago or anything like that, but I'm sure that Alderman, I don't know what your arrangements are with bike parking on public ways, but that's something that would have to be determined from the city of Chicago, because you'd be parking the bikes in the public way, and whether or not this would be the area for a Divvy bike station is something I don't know. I know that the city has a regular department that checks out areas where bike parking is being requested to determine whether or not it can in fact be put into place. Alderman, I don't know, you probably have a better answer than me.
Yeah, no, I think, depending on how everything were to move here, based on the community process, should this move forward, we would be looking to the Department of Transportation to see what accommodations can be made for cyclists, for pedestrians, right, for accessibility. So that's something we would definitely look at and look to address.
So we are providing some bike parking on the southeast corner of the Ashland lot right now, proposing 15 to 18 spaces there, depending on what type of bike rack you use. So we are providing some on the private property as well.
Thank you for that.
And then I have a question about, can you go over the height of the building again?
David, what's the height of the building?
We're 24 feet to the parapet in the back of the building, I believe 28 to the front, 28 to 30 in the front.
Okay,
the
perfect.
Clark Street side.
And then Rob asks, according to the Chamber of Commerce website, more than twice the dollars stay in the neighborhood when it's a locally owned business. What is the calculus in using this prime space for this national chain?
Can you repeat the question, please, Morgan, again?
Sure. So this person is asking, is talking about the importance of locally owned businesses and asking, what is the calculus in using this prime space for a national chain? I guess like why should the neighborhood support a national chain in this area?
I don't know the answer to that. All I know is that Trader Joe's has been looking to come into this Andersonville community. They think it's an area that would be receptive to the type of product that they sell, and they're located. They have a number of stores now in Chicago. All seem to be very successful because they seem to meet the needs of the community, and that's why they're seeking to locate it at this location.
Yeah, then the next question is very similar. They're asking about specific data, what data Trader Joe's might have used to calculate that and decide that they would be viable in the Andersonville corridor.
I don't know. This is Jack again. I don't know what type of empirical data that they use and what that they use to determine why this is a good location. I can get that data, but I know that they go through a very rigorous exercise to make sure that the area that they choose as a site is one that they believe will fit in well with the community and answer the needs of that particular community. I can try to get specific empirical data for you and furnish that to you, and I'll do my best to get it for you.
Thank you. And then the next question is, can you, this person I believe is asking if the Trader Joe's will happen on this site regardless of whether the Ashland address that we were talking about today for rezoning gets rezoned or not. So if you could go over exactly the site that we're rezoning and then how the Trader Joe's is tied to that or not.
Well, the reason why, the only reason why they wouldn't go here is if for some reason they can't get the zoning. I mean, we have to, this project's being developed both with the bank as well as Trader Joe's, as well as the area that's over on the corner, the northeast corner of Summerdale and Ashland. It's all part of the one project. And in order to get that project, we have to do that special use as I've talked about before, and we have to do that rezoning of that one lot. I mean, that's all conditional upon that has to be obtained in order for the project to go forward.
Okay, great. I am going through this is a Trader Joe's question, but they're asking, does TJ's have a strategy to reduce the plastic footprint in its grocery store?
Again, I have to ask you, Morgan, to repeat the question.
Oh, does Trader Joe's have a plan to reduce the plastic consumption in its grocery store?
I don't know what their position is on plastic consumption, but again, I can find out the answer to that. I don't know the answer. I think that everyone is very aware of the fact that Trader Joe's is very environmentally concerned institution in all that they do. So, but I don't know the specific answer to that question. But there again, I can find out the answer and get it for you.
Okay, great. And then the next question I have here is there research indicating that there's demand for a drive-through ATM?
Well, I don't represent the bank, but I know that Mr. Schwartz and Mr. Alan Schwartz and Stephen Schwartz are on, who are involved with that bank, and I think they can maybe answer the question. But there's definitely, from what I understand, and they can bolster this. From what I understand, there's definitely a need for that ATM at this location. The people that have been using that bank have been using it a long time, and I think they believe that this ATM is necessary for them to be able to continue their banking relationship at this location. But Alan or Stephen, maybe you can answer it a little bit better than I can.
Yes, I've been a advisory director at US Bank for in excess of 20 years, counting their predecessor. Predecessor is plural. And they feel that an ATM is very important in today's transactions. And they are consenting to have one that does nothing else but dispense money and do ATM structures and not have a teller there. So that it's not, but having it on Ashland makes it very convenient and inobtrusive to any of the Clark traffic.
Thanks very much.
Would closures on Ashland be necessary during construction?
I don't know. On Ashland, there shouldn't be too much. I wouldn't think there would be too much closure on Ashland. There may be closures on Clark, but every time every time you have any closure of any street or sidewalk or anything, every developer, and especially here with Trader Joe's, is required to meet with the alderman ahead of time, discuss with him what the logistics of the building of how the building will be built and what it will entail in terms of any type of closures. They meet with the alderman to do that so that the alderman can disseminate that information through his own email program and then whatever other type of communication is needed so that we cause the least amount of impact on the community. That's just a program that we always follow, is to make sure that the community is aware of whatever closure occurs. I mean, the whole idea here is that Trader Joe's is coming into this neighborhood and they want to be a good neighbor. And that's going to start initially with the way they handle the construction of their building and how it's going to impact the community. So they're going to create it in such and do it in such a way that there's the least amount of impact on this community, because that's the kind of relationship they want to instill with this community.
Okay, great. And Emily asks, is there a plan for intraspectrum counseling, which is also in the building and serves many members of the LGBTQ community in Andersonville?
I don't know the answer to that. I don't know the answer to that. I don't know if you do, Alderman, but I don't.
Sorry, could you repeat that one, Morgan?
I think they're asking about intraspectrum counseling, which it sounds like is located in the building that would be taken down.
What's located in the building that would be taken down?
So it sounds like intraspectrum counseling.
Yeah, I'm not aware about that one, but we can escalate that up to find out more.
Okay, great. All right, scrolling. A lot of these questions have been asked, so I'm moving down. Be patient with me. Many chats tonight. Will all the exterior lighting be discrete, or will there be harsh lights on the building facing outward? I guess, what is the lighting plan?
Sure. David Bender can answer this question, but it's the intention of Trader Joe's, of course, to cause the least amount of light impact on any of the neighbors. And David, maybe, I know you know the answer better than I do, so maybe you can direct your attention to that.
Yeah, we're planning on meeting ordinance requirements of 0-foot candles at the property line. So anything that's visible from offsite will be very dim and not a distraction or a glare. And we feel it, with the roof lighting that's come up, and specifically there's a 4 to 5 foot parapet around the roof that we feel will be very easily current LED technology, which doesn't throw light far. Actually, you can control the throw with LED. It would be very easy to achieve 0-foot candles at the property line.
Just following up on that, David, how tall will the lighting standards be that will be shedding the light onto the parking area?
So typically with a 50-car surface parking field, you'd have maybe 1 to 2 poles, kind of like it's on the existing lot at 25 to 30 feet tall. But given that we're a roof parking, our plan is to provide more poles at lower height levels and that like 12 to 15-foot height level. Again, to control the throw a little more and a little bleed over the property line as little as possible.
Thanks very much.
The next question asks if the development will be following the Andersonville facade guidelines, which I believe those are the guidelines set out by the chamber.
I'm not familiar with the guidelines. I know that if Dick Oaks can send them to me or whatever it is, I'll share them with our developer. I'm sure that we will be following them, because if that's something that is been designed by the community and adhered to by the businesses in the community, I'm sure we will be adhering to them too. I don't know exactly what they are, but as you've heard David talk, I mean, the fabric of this building is going to be masonry all the way around. I mean, we're not, especially at the rear of the Trader Joe's, which would be facing Ashland, that's all going to be masonry. It's not going to be, a lot of buildings have cement walls or some other type of product back there, which is not very attractive. But it was the intention of the developer of this project and the architect to make sure that all of the facing and fabric of this building is the highest of quality. And so that's what's intended here. And so once we know what these guidelines are, we'll look at them, and I'm sure we'll be able to adhere to them. I don't know, David, if you know what these guidelines are. I'm not familiar specifically with them, but
yeah, I'm familiar with the pedestrian street guidelines that we're meeting, again, with the storefront requirements and the masonry requirements.
Will we be complying with them?
Yeah, we will be complying with pedestrian street guidelines.
I think, Jack, this is Steve. I think we know about the pedestrian street guidelines that are City of Chicago that apply to Clark Street. We'll need to see the Andersonville Chamber to see if we can comply with them. I just don't know what they are.
Okay, next question. If this,
Morgan?
oh, go ahead.
Sorry, super quick, 2 things. One, if you could do me a favor and put the form link on the chat for folks who want to submit all the comments, because they're all putting them on chat anyway, right? They can click on the link and submit those. And for neighbors on the call who have questions, if you could do us a favor and type the letter Q prior to your question, it will make it easier for us to dig through all the comments to get to the actual questions. We want to make sure that we have all the questions and also that we're getting your feedback through the proper avenue. So I want to make sure we've got the form up for y'all.
Alderman, I'm gonna direct message you via Slack the link so I don't lose my place in the
Yeah,
chat.
and I'll send it. I got it. No
I'm
problem.
afraid it'll skip forward and then I'll have to go back.
Sure, no worries.
I'll do that. The next question is, if this is approved, what is the timeline for building and when would it be completed and theoretically open?
Well, the timeline for zoning, we haven't, in accordance with our agreement with Alderman Vasquez and in accordance with his practice, we were holding these community meetings first to make sure we vet the project with the community. If we are able to get the support of the aldermen for this in the community for this project, we would then file for the special use and also for the zoning change. The special use would probably take 2 to 3 months to get done. Same probably for the zoning change, depending upon the calendars of either the zoning committee and the ZBA. So it would probably be 3 months before the zoning. And I don't know, Stephen or Alan, if you have an idea, or David, as to when, if this is approved, when Trader Joe's would begin construction. I don't have the specific specific date in mind, but maybe you do.
I don't have the specific.
The school.
We'd like to do it as quickly as possible, but the construction itself is probably gonna take a year. But there has to be all the drawings that have to be done, the bids have to come out, the financing has to be done. So that, you know, my guess is you've just outlined about, I think it was 4 or 5 months for the zoning. Then there's a year, so it's a couple of years probably is the answer.
Okay, great. And then I had a few people wanting to clarify, will there be a pedestrian entrance on Clark?
Yes,
Okay, just making sure. Has Trader Joe's executed a letter of intent with the developer? Is Trader Joe's solid on moving into this development?
again, Alan and Stephen, you can answer that question since you're the developers.
The intent has been negotiated.
Okay, great.
I just some more.
What did you say, Stephen?
I'm sorry, I just thought Trader Joe's been trying to get here for a long time, so they're very interested.
All right, I'm moving through these comments. I know you spoke a little bit about this, but what kind of community engagement does Trader Joe's plan?
As I said earlier, I mean, I think some of this you can just read on their own website, but they have a national hunger program that they have nationwide that they support, and they try to do it locally too. They support the local community in which they go. As I said earlier, they have a regular donor coordinating person in each store that works with the community to try to fund different community organization requests. And that's something that they do. I know the alderman asked me originally, Jack, find out what they do and around the country. And I did ask those questions, and I was able to find out that they have this national hunger program that they endorse and support. And then they have these local organizations that they support. And so that's really their position. They're very much involved in the communities that they get involved in. They join the Chamber of Commerce. They do all of the other things that any good business would be engaged in to try to make sure that the community that they're going into is supported. So that's the position they'll take here in Andersonville.
Okay, next question. Will MBE/DBE participation be a goal of the architect or general contractor as they design and begin construction of this building? I actually don't know what those acronyms stand for. So if the architect, if you're familiar, if you could answer the question and also let us know what that stands for.
What were the acronyms? I didn't.
MBE/DBE, or the question asker can clarify if they would like. Alex.
The initials stand for Minority Business Enterprise is what MBE stands for. What was the other one?
DBE.
I don't know what that one stands for, but I know what MBE stands for. David, can you address the question about MBE?
I'm not certain, but my guess is yes, but I'm not certain of the answer.
Well, it would be our goal as developers to try and do what we can for minority-owned or women-owned businesses. I can't commit to what number or percentage it would be. It would depend on the time. At the time, what's available.
Okay, great.
Hey, Morgan,
Yes.
can you hear me?
Yes.
So the link you sent me is, I think, the intake form.
Oh, okay. I'll send you the other link. Let me get to the next question, Alderman. My
Okay.
mistake.
Thank you.
And then I'll send it to you. Okay.
I've just posted it in the chat, Morgan.
Here's a design question. Somebody's asking about, it looks to them like there are no windows on the front of the building. Is that the case?
David, can you?
We're 70% glazed in the front of the building.
I know there's a few questions in here about traffic studies and impact studies. And I don't believe either of those have been done yet. Jack, unless you know something different.
Yeah, with respect to the traffic and impacts, the traffic study, we have, my clients have retained KLOA, which is a well-respected traffic engineering firm to look at this site. And but that study has not yet been completed. But as I told the alderman, once we have the results of that study, we'll be more than happy to share that with the alderman and in the community.
Great. And Alderman, I'm sending you the correct link this time via email.
Oh, it's okay. Sorry, Morgan. Jordan put it up, so we're already good.
Oh, Jordan, you are a star as always.
Okay.
Thank you.
And for everyone, Jordan's our administrative assistant and new team member. So thank you for that, Jordan.
And honestly, my hero tonight and every day at the office. Okay, next question. Somebody's asking if the developer is receiving city funding. I believe the answer is no. Jack, if you could confirm.
Yes, the answer is no. We're not receiving any TIF money or any other financial entitlement as part of this project.
Somebody in the chat is asking if the survey will go out to those in the 48th ward. We will be sending it out, but people in the 48th ward are allowed to reply. I don't know if we'll be sending it through Harry's office, though we can pass it along to him, but we will be sending it in our newsletter, on our website, and to everybody who attended this meeting.
Right, and we did as part of our noticing and at the request of Alderman Vasquez, include in our noticing certain properties that were in the 48th ward. And I also notified Alderman Harry Osterman that we were doing that so that he was aware of it. And I know that his first assistant is Dan Luna commented that they did receive the information and they were also letting people know. So whatever you want us to do with respect to the 48th ward, we'll be glad to share whatever information you want us to share with them.
The next question, has anyone spoken to DPD about this and its impact on the corridor? Our office spoke with DPD, and I believe CDOT is always in conversation with DPD, but I believe CDOT has been in conversation with the developer on that front.
I did speak with the zoning administrator of the city of Chicago, who is a part of the Department of Planning and Development. And I had many conversations with him with respect to the ATM and the drive-through. And after many conversations, he acknowledged that the type of ATM that we're talking about, which does not include any type of banking operation in that parking lot, that would be something that could be acceptable. But there is no other requirement that this is not a planned development, so we don't have to appear before the plan commission or the zone up in the plan commission. So, but I did talk with Patrick Murphy, the zoning administrator for the city of Chicago, as it relates to the special use for the ATM drive-through.
Great. Dana is asking if Trader Joe's will let their store unionize. It's a great question, Dana. I don't know if we can answer that, but certainly if they do, if there's issues there, our office will certainly step in. Oh, go ahead.
We can't answer. I can't answer that question. That's beyond my pay grade.
There's a question if there will be another public meeting after seeing a traffic study. That really depends. If the general neighbors are in support of the development, our office will take that in consideration, making our decision. But if there is a lot of feedback and concerns, then we can bring those to the developer and work on coming up with a new plan. And there will be a second public meeting for that. So it really depends what you guys tell us via that public comment form. So it's very important you fill that out sometime in the next 2 weeks. There's a question, if we ask questions in the chat, do we need to submit them via the form? Yes, please. That is the official legal document. That's the official way to submit comments. You don't have to submit your questions unless they haven't been answered or you're still looking for an answer, but the comments will need to be in that form. I think somebody's asking that there was previously a Trader Joe's Trader Joe's previously showed interest in a building in Andersonville and it didn't go through. Can you guys speak to that project? Do you know anything about that project?
I don't know anything about a prior Trader Joe's that did not go through. I don't know anything about that.
Jack, I can speak to that.
Oh, go ahead, Alan. Okay.
I have owned the property with my family since 1987 or 1988. We have never come before with Trader Joe's for any official blessing, any official rezoning, or anything like that, period.
So we don't know about any other deals that have fallen through.
No, we don't.
I did see a question on here. Do we intend to sell the property or flip it? The answer is no.
I have a question about zoning. These folks are asking how this will impact future projects in the area. You know, I really can't speak to that. We do zoning on a site-by-site basis, and it's all based on community feedback. So if the community wants to see a Trader Joe's in every block, then that's generally what we do. So putting this Trader Joe's here doesn't necessarily impact future development. It just, unless it impacts the opinions of you folks, of the folks who live here. So if this means, so basically we're gonna make this decision, and I can't speak to further decisions because I can't speak to who's gonna buy land and who's gonna ask for zoning changes in the future, if that makes sense.
And again, neighbors, if you can put Q before your questions, because I know Morgan's trying to dig through all these comments to get to them.
Yeah. I have a question about a meeting just for the 40th ward. I'm sorry. We're having this one meeting just in the interest of time, but we are accepting your public comments, and everybody's comments, especially the folks that live within half a mile of the site, will be taken into consideration. A lot of people are asking about if the design is final, and I know you spoke to looking at the Anderson build design features, so I'm assuming that is not the case. You're open to design changes in the future.
David, you can answer the question. I mean, the building that we're showing you tonight is the design that we come up with based upon the architect's concerns for the store itself, and also taking into consideration the area and the community in which we're being built. I mean, David, you may want to talk about what considerations you took into you concerned yourself with when you were coming up with the design of the building that we have tonight. Maybe you can just shed some light on that, David.
Yeah, it's really just, providing something that's consistent with the neighborhood from a pedestrian standpoint. It fronts Clark Street, and it supports that type of use in the neighborhood, which is typically retail, restaurant, pedestrian activity. So we feel it complies with all that, and certainly we'll take a look at the design guidelines and see if there's any tweaks we need to make to comply with that. But we feel it complies with pedestrian street regulations.
Great. And then
Could you pull up the renderings again, please, really quickly? Thank you.
Here we go. Yeah.
what will the length of the lease be for the bank and Trader Joe's?
No,
Go ahead.
The firm term of the lease is 10 years. Then there are two options.
So, yeah, so for a full 20 years.
We see the second page, the back rendering as well, please. Thank you.
And then another question, what do you anticipate the environmental impact of the construction / building materials to be? Are you following any higher standards?
David, that's a question for you.
Yeah, I don't believe we're pursuing any lead opportunities with this.
Eric's asking, can we provide comments on the form without deciding yet if we support or oppose? Well, you can only fill out the form one time. I would suggest you have 2 weeks, so I would suggest you decide whether you support or oppose before you fill it out, but feel free to take the full 2 weeks, but I will be closing it into midnight on Wednesday, 2 weeks from tonight. Here's a question. How much of Trader Joe's business is typically foot traffic versus car traffic shopping? Do you have an answer for that, or is it something you can get from Trader Joe's?
I don't know the answer to that question, but here again, I'll get that for you from Trader Joe's. I mean, it all depends on each location as to how much foot traffic you're going to get. Or I think because of this particular neighborhood and the number of dwelling units in this particular area within at least more than a half a mile surrounding it, the number of people that are living there, I would imagine a large percentage will be walking or biking to this location as opposed to parking. But I'll try to get a better answer for you from Trader Joe's.
Absolutely. And my next question, where Kim asks about the concerns of the immediate neighbors and how they are or are not being addressed. Delivery hours, truck traffic. I know you had a meeting with immediate neighbors. How are you planning to address their concerns?
Well, we did. Alderman Vasquez was there. The meeting went for about an hour and a half. And we listened to the immediate neighbors who would be mostly impacted by this. And we addressed each and one of their concerns. They were concerned about the lighting. They were concerned about, they wanted originally we had an entrance coming in, the entrance and the exit to the parking lot coming off of Summerdale. And they said that they really wanted us to change that to have the exit out onto Ashland with a one-way only right turn only. And we agreed to change that, which we did. As I say, that some of the neighbors were concerned about the lighting, which we really have addressed very carefully to make sure that we don't create any type of lighting problems to the neighbors who are on the other side of the alley. Right now, there is a large light standard there that does shine into the neighbors, and that would be eliminated once this is done. But we went through. I mean, they raised concerns about rodent control, which we told them we would have a program for that. Those were some of the issues. I mean,
Wait, can you talk?
Yeah, Jack, can I just mention two things, please, if I may? So one is the tall light still shows up in this rendering.
Hey, I'm so sorry. It's just not fair to other neighbors if we let people interject. But I'm going to go through the Q&As and I can make sure your questions and concerns get addressed after the meeting. But I'm sorry, I know you have concerns, but it's just not fair to other people if we let people interject.
Well, I was just talking about the two things that Jack is referring to, but that's fine, Morgan. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. All right, it is 7:57. I'm going to give it till 8:10 with questions. If your question was not answered tonight, I will pass it on to developer and we should have answers for you shortly before the comment form closes. There's another question about community engagement, Trader Joe's, what Trader Joe's looking back to the community. I believe Jack answered that they have options in their website, but also if this development does go through, that's something that our office can work with Trader Joe's on making sure that we have a plan going forward on what they contribute to the community, and will involve all of you folks in that conversation as well.
Hey, Morgan, I'm getting direct messages about questions been asked repeatedly as to whether I support the project. So I guess I should reframe it. This is why we have the community-driven zoning here in the 40th ward. So as it pertains to these projects, what we do is we have a meeting so that you all ask the questions, you can provide the feedback, and that largely informs what decision the office goes in. So this isn't whether I support or not. In fact, I'm kind of hopping in on this one because we knew there'd be a large turnout, and I want to be able to hear from the neighbors directly in advance of any decisions being made.
In these meetings, our office is just a neutral body. We are simply connecting the developer with you folks and asking and answering questions, and we don't make a decision or have an opinion until we've heard from all of our neighbors and any neighborhood groups and any chambers that are in the area. A couple of clarifying questions. Is the Trader Joe's sign that will be the large Trader Joe's sign, will that be on Clark or will that be on, which street will that be facing?
David or Alan, do you know, I know there'll be a Trader Joe's sign on the front entrance, on the front of the Trader Joe's that'll be on Clark Street. I don't know, will there be a Trader Joe's sign also on the corner there of Ashland and Summerdale on the northeast corner? There is presently a sign there now for the bank. I think it would probably, I can't speak for Trader Joe's on this issue of signage, but I'm sure they would like to be able to have some type of a sign there if they could, but I don't know the answer, the total answer. So David, do you know any better about it, where they would want?
I do not. Alan would probably know. He's been negotiating with Trader Joe's, but as you said, there is a US Bank on a sign on the corner right now. It's not showing here. So I believe the intent is to give them both signs in the back of the building.
Sorry, Dave. That's it. They would be interested alternatively in a sign on the back of the building that fronts on Clark Street, the back of that building which fronts on the alley. They might want a sign on there.
Yeah, there would be, as I said, we will have a sign on the front of the building on Clark Street. There'll also be on the back of the building, which would be viewed from Ashland. There will be a Trader Joe's sign there. There's not going to be any neon lights or anything like that. I know that was a question that came up, I think, when we met with the adjacent neighbors. Would there be any type of neon signs or flashing lights or any of that sort of stuff? And the answer was no.
I have somebody asking, when does the US Bank's current lease run out?
9.5 years from now.
Okay, and then another question, somebody saying the rendering is showing no parking on Summerdale between Clark and Ashland. Is that correct?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that, Morgan?
The rendering is showing no parking on Summerdale between Clark and Ashland. Is that correct?
The rendering doesn't show it, but there is parking on Summerdale on both sides of the street currently.
Good, just to clarify. And then another person is asking, can large trucks easily back into the loading zone without significantly blocking Summerdale?
The answer, that'll be shown by the traffic study, but the answer is yes. That was something that we considered, of course, when we were designing for this building, was to make sure that the trucks could maneuver inside that loading zone and come out onto Summerdale and make the turn. And that will be shown as part of the traffic study with the templates that will be used to make those drawings. And so when we send you the traffic study, we'll show that will be part of the diagrams contained in the study.
Okay, great. I think we're going to wrap it up for tonight. Before we hop off, the alderman, if there's a question that hasn't been answered, we'll make sure to pass it on to the developer, and you can always email me at morgan@40thward.org. I'll put my email in the chat, but the alderman's going to say a few words before we hop off.
Sure. Thank you all so much for making this call. Just to provide a little more background, this has all been recorded, so we will be posting this up so that neighbors can check out how the conversation has gone. We also will be saving the chat so that we can get the questions that are in the chat and therefore be able to kind of get them written out and have them in Q&A form. I will say, kind of observing some of this, it does appear that there are a lot of questions more for Trader Joe's that they are going to have to answer before anything's moving forward, as well as concerns about traffic, which I think are all fair things to bring up. So I'm not going to say necessarily that we're doing a second meeting, but it definitely feels that direction based on the questions we're seeing in the chat. It'll be more fully informed by what we see in the form. So please fill out these forms, let us know your thoughts, ask all the questions there as well. The way it's gone before, to kind of give you all some background, is we typically have these meetings and either neighbors are, gangbusters, let's do it tomorrow, or we've got concerns. And typically we look at what all the different concerns are, break that down in a way that, depending on how it plays out, we go back to the developer to figure out what an agreement might look like, but it is all dependent on what we get back from feedback from the neighbors. So the only way for us to be fully informed as to what next steps will be, or where things land, would be for you all to fill out the forms, so that we can get that information. So I really do appreciate the thoughtfulness in the questions that are coming up, as well as the concerns, because I think when we look at the impact of anything coming into the neighborhood, and obviously when it's a larger development, we want to take all those questions into consideration and those concerns. So we'll be looking through all this, but again, fill out the forms, make sure the folks that fill out the forms so we can get all that information and understand exactly how best to address and move forward. So thank you all. It is 8 p.m., 8:05 actually. Some of y'all might need to grab dinner if you haven't already. And we look forward to continuing the conversation here. Thank you so
Alderman,
much.
I just.
Oh, sure, yeah, absolutely.
Alderman, thanks so much. I just wanted to say thanks again to you for organizing the meeting, and thanks again to everybody that came in and listened to this program. Trader Joe's and the developers are very anxious to develop this site. We'll do it to the best of our ability and make it fit in with the community. And we're anxious to get started. And again, thanks everybody for giving us the opportunity to be here tonight. We really appreciate it. Thanks again, Alderman.
Thank you so much. All right, let's make sure we save the chat so we don't lose that. You got that, Morgan, on your end?
I got it. Everything's recorded.
All right, we got that and chat saved.
All
right.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good night.
That's right. See y'all next time. Take care.